Hello, everybody. Welcome to WIRSPA's Rum Maker series. This is an ongoing series we here at WIRSPA are doing to bring our viewers up close and personal with the people actually making Caribbean rum today. My name is Matt Pietrek, and my co-host is Devon Date. Good morning, Devon.
Hi, man.
Yes, yeah. And we are here today to speak with Thomas Roulston. Is that how you say it?
Roulston, yeah.
Thomas has previously appeared on one of our WIRSPA videos. During the COVID times, we were taking viewers into distilleries, and at the time, Thomas was with Ray and Nephew, and now he is at Hampden Estate. So welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
So let's jump right in. Thomas, let's start at the beginning. Tell us about where you were born, where you grew up, all the stuff.
Okay, so I was born in the northeastern part of the island in St. Mary, a little farming district called Rock River. Went to basic school there, primary school there. Incidentally, the basic school was started by my mom back then. And then I went to St. Mary High School, where I graduated. Leaving St. Mary High School, then I came into Kingston, the big city, to continue my studies. So I started in agriculture, but got to love chemistry, so I switched. And at the time, it was being offered at the College of Arts, Science and Technology. At the time, the current University of Technology, Jamaica, formerly College of Arts, Science and Technology. So that's where it started. And then I ended up, when it changed name, doing some studies, a degree program there.
So what were your initial jobs after completing university?
Okay, so I immediately after completing university, I joined the sugar industry. I got a job at Duckenfield Sugar Company, that's out in St. Thomas, eastern part of the island as well.
And what were you doing there?
Well, I was actually what they call a reports chemist, where you sort of look at the process throughout the day and develop the statistics around what the production numbers are and what the quality reports are, etc. Yeah. So that was my initial sort of job. Okay. But I only stayed there for roughly about 11 months.
You worked in some other engineering industries as well. Tell us about that.
Right. So I left and I went into Pietrek, which is the oil industry that was newly bought by the Jamaican government from SO West Indies Limited. And there I got trained significantly in safety, in quality, and in alcohol sort of evaluations. So we were called technicians in those days. So I was there working for roughly about 10 years. Became part of the current fuel that we are driving on now, the E10, E87 development. I was part of the quality team. And while I was there, I was still studying. So I went back to university and I did industrial management to the associate level and became a member of the Institution of Industrial Managers, Jamaica. And I left some 9 to 10 years after and went back into sugar. Then it was a privatized group called the Sugar Company of Jamaica. And I worked there as a factory chemist for roughly 9+ years again. So I seem to have had a 9-year plus rollover in job changes. While I was there, though, I worked with a very good general manager, Ian Maxwell, and he subsequently left and went to work full-time with Jerry and Nephew Limited.
So you mentioned studying agriculture at university, then you went into industrial management, and obviously some chemistry background. Right. You're a science guy.
Well, yes, I got to love the sciences. I actually did some business, so my degree really was, I pursued a degree then in business as the last study point.
So tell us about your first role in rum making and where was it? You mentioned going to Appleton. So talk to
Okay,
us.
so Ian Maxwell lured me into Appleton because then we called the industry here the sugar cane industry. So it involves sugar manufacture and rum. So at Money Musk, when I was there prior, I became the production manager for the sugar side. And then I came to Appleton. Ian Maxwell invited me, and I got to be the distillery manager here. No prior, direct history in rum making for drinking. I had alcohol experience at Pietrek for fuel. But I quickly got drafted in. Michael Delevante, as you know.
I was going to say we've interviewed Michael Delevante previously on our Icon series. I assume he was there when you first started. Tell us about those early days.
So my early days with Michael Delevante was exploratory. He got to expose me to the art of fermentation and distillation, the whole distillery operation. I was used to factory, operations prior. But the Appleton Distillery was sort of a nice, unique assembly of equipment. And so I soon, got to be, he got to be my mentor. And then I was also steeped into the whole technical side by going into the J. Neville facility in Kingston, where the influence of Joyce Spence and the whole training team there taught me evaluation of rums and the whole matter of quality and control. So went back to Appleton and I was on my way. Michael held my hand for roughly about 6 months. And then he sort of went back to his main business. And then I got assistance from Winston, the Kennedy.
Yeah, so your time with Appleton, they underwent many equipment and systems upgrade during your time there. What are some notable projects during this time?
Okay, so when I got there,
and actually, really quick, what time period are we talking about here?
Okay, so I went into Hampden Estate about 2004. And I spent quite a long time there. In my first couple of years, I was working with the local Rare Nephew company. And we were on a sort of a building mode. So we were putting in new pot stills, 5,000 gallons. So the final one was put in while I was there. And that helped to boost our sort of production volume. Going from the heart of the distillery, as you know, the fermentation house is really the heart. We had to do some improvements, which I was tasked to do in ensuring that our pasteurization of molasses went well and our fermentation yields were improved. So we put in some automatic systems to measure brixes, temperature control, and also pH control. And that helped us to prepare better molasses for the fermentation process. We also had to do some solids removal, installation of a system, a decanter, which helped to remove solids and to create a better quality molasses to go into fermentation. So those were some of the initial changes that we made. But then we did some amount of experimental work because we wanted to, look at the water quality we were using. So we did a characterization there. We did experiments to develop a distillation curve for Appleton rums and also a fermentation curve for the plant as well.
So when you talk about these curves, tell us more about these.
All right. So what you want to do is while you are going through the process of fermentation, what you're actually doing is that you are mapping the temperature, mapping the breakdown in sugar, to see how that comes out in the formation of the alcohol that you are actually measuring. So you collect samples first after 15 hours, then every 5 hours after, and we look at how that curve turns out. So we plot the figures to give you a sort of a curve on how it would go. Similarly, we did that for the distillation side as well. So for a particular mark, for example, if you carry out that distillation habit the way you ought to do it, it would come close to that curve or sometimes exact. So those are ways we use to guide our process.
So your Brix curve basically speaks about how your Brix fall and your alcohol increase in the fermenters during fermentation.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned about the pot still. Any changes on the column still while in your time there, Appleton?
All right. So when I got there, we were actually doing some maintenance on the column still. It was a Vendome copper and brass still. Where we were looking at the pour size in our trays and so on. And we had to do a reassembly. This was a 3-stage column. It had the beer, it had the mid column, and then you had the rectifier. So it was not a new column, but we were refitting some parts that helped it to become more efficient. All right. So I have spoken about the pre-compare phase. Those are some of the main things we did. I was part of a team that also started exploring waste management, treatment systems. So that also happened while I was at Appleton Estate.
Well, there was wasn't there like a Canadian column still at some point?
Okay, so the Canadian column still that was to have been done at Appleton was actually transferred to the Clarendon plant. So that was set up there because they wanted to manufacture more of the light rum in Clarendon, and also it was a nearer distance to Kingston, so transportation cost and so would be better.
Okay.
Hence that decision.
Okay. So when you say Clarendon, are you talking about New Yarmouth?
The New Yarmouth Estate is situated in the parish of, that's kind of mid-island.
As longtime viewers of us of this series know, I like to talk about the Caribbean Rum Sector Program, which was a program where the European Union funded the WIRSPA members with assistance in upgrading their equipment, their processes, their marketing programs. And we'd like to sort of showcase what different distilleries, what benefits and improvements they got out of it. So can you tell us about some of the Ray and Nephew, the Appleton and or New Yarmouth or other things, other rum sector program improvements?
Right. So for Appleton, I know we got assistance from them in installing a 50 psi boiler. We had steam problems back then. So, we were having interruptions in the operation of the distillery because it coexisted with a sugar factory. So they wanted a dedicated boiler for the distillery in order to ensure that we were able to run more consistently. So that was one of the projects that we actually got help and funding from WIRSPA. And also there was another one, which was a 1250 diesel generator that they assisted us with as well. That improved the electricity supply to the distillery. So we were able to run quite steadily. Speaking to the previous manager, I took over from Alton McKenzie, you might know him. He had lots of stoppages due to problems of steam and electrics. That was sorted out after we did those projects, and it really helped us well.
In 2012, a group of Campari purchased Ray and Nephew. Did this change how Appleton and New Yarmouth was running?
Well, it did. they came in with a significantly new approach to business. First, they focused on, the image. So the plant had to look the way that Campari plants around the world looked. So we were given funding to start to do all the upgrading to buildings and compound that was necessary, and the paintings to make the plant look and feel like a Campari business. There was a big cultural shift in the way we operated. The way we conducted meetings, types of meetings, the way budgeting was done, there was a significant focus on projects as a group. So we were running three-year project rollover cycles. There was a budget put behind that, and we did a lot of work. The pot stills, I got all of them polished when we actually cleaned them, polished them, and then we lacquered them. And so they look and still have the copper look to them, shiny and quite nice. So the entire pot still here, all the copper systems were done, and that was very significant for the visitor sector, because they got to see the stills looking different from what most copper stills look like in other jurisdictions. Also, the focus on the environment was a big change. We had to start to look at how we manage waste, how the drainage systems in the plants were laid out, what systems we had in place to detect breaches. So we installed what we call a final sump, that whenever we have any what we consider to be effluent leaving the distillery that may cause pollution, an alarm system goes off and the system chips in and lift all of that to a waste disposal pond that we had. So that was one of the first things. We also had one in the internals of the plant, in one of those main drains that would go off before the one that is at the final. From there, they continued the waste treatment plan that we were pursuing. And so we got into major projects to install that NFRO system that we use to treat the effluent from the distillery. Effluent was not just done, but washings and so on that comes from floors and drains, etc., which we don't want to go into the environment. When that plant was completed, I had first privilege in running it. Based on parameters that we were to achieve for the discharge water, we had some problems there. So we had to do a dry run, a sort of a pilot, utilizing a membrane bioreactor system, and it worked. And so we installed that along with a polishing RO to get our water quality right and discharge back into the Black River where it came from originally. The rejects, as we call it, we actually continued to utilize that on cane growing based on permission from the Environmental Agency in Jamaica. So that plant, I was the guinea pig in initiating and running that plant until I left.
The maintenance on that plant would have been pretty high.
It was, but based on the cost of environmental, pollution, it was. As I indicated, we were to actually take it to a 3-stage operation, where we would put in an evaporation system to reduce the water content and possibly look at sales as CMS. And also Where that didn't work, we could utilize what they call a Concord Blue technology, which would take the solids and burn them in suspension and produce a methane gas. We never got to those two phases. I know currently there may be some project to do the second phase at New Yarmouth in Clarendon.
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to acknowledge or recognize in rum production. When we talk about rum makers, it's not just the process of fermenting, distilling, and getting the product. But in terms of sustainability and environmental management,
Right.
it's a big part of rum production also, and it's a part of the it's topics in the industry that we take very serious as rum makers.
Yes, well,
Um,
given that the your purchasers internationally and the world was looking at greening, so we had to go down that road, and we actually were the first distillery in Jamaica to put a treatment plant into action.
Devon, I know you had a lot of experience at Renegade. It was very
yeah,
sort of modern and forward thinking in its waste treatment.
it's waste treatment, sure. Yeah, so sustainability is very important. While at Rene, Reneve is best known for its Appleton Distillery. They also own New Yarmouth Distillery. Did you play a role in the operations of New Yarmouth also?
Okay, so during my time at Red Nephew, when I joined, there was a more senior distillery manager in New Yarmouth called Hugh Murdoch. So a lot of mentorship in terms of in plants. I would spend time when I go to meetings there with him. He was the master of the ISTO system there as well, and so I would pick up from him. He eventually left, and a new manager took over who also had no experience in rum manufacturing. So I became the senior, and so I had to spend some time in New Yarmouth to assist him in ensuring that he actually got his footing correctly and that things could transition smoothly. And so being there with him allowed me to actually see their operation full time and help to troubleshoot issues that I had done at my own plant in Appleton. When he goes on vacation for 4 weeks per year, I normally cover the New Yarmouth operation as well. And in all the developments that took place, I've been on the project team to actually do the developments at New Yarmouth. So yes, I didn't work day to day there, but we had close contact. The distillery managers talk every day, every morning after our operations meeting. We chat about issues and fixes and so on.
Not many people know that New Yarmouth is actually kind of like two distilleries in one, two separate distilleries, and one you could say is somewhat like Appleton in its equipment and its operations, but the other is the high ester distillery, which you did not have at Appleton. So was coming to New Yarmouth and immersing yourself in into the high ester thing, was that an interesting experience from you? Any stories you can tell?
But very significant for me because then the gentleman was one of the genius of ISTO. That was Winston Kennedy. He then became now our mentor. So we learned a lot from him in the ISTO manufacturing system. So he would visit us, came to my plant on a Monday, and then when we have meetings now, we would pick up with him in Clarendon. So we were sharing time at the plants at the time, and so that helped to sort of, get me to know much about the whole matter of making ISTA rums. Not until I do now, because I am now fully immersed, but then that's where I picked up most things from.
Yeah, it's interesting because the people who are the Jamaican rum fanatics out there know about some of the New Yarmouth marks like NYE
Yeah.
HM,
Yeah.
which would be Hugh Murdoch, and NYEWK, which is the
Right.
highest mark, Winston Kennedy. So any other people or marks from the highest distillery we can tell us about?
Well, there was WM, which stands for William McConnell. I know. There at Appleton, I know there were some other marks. They call LL and VL. I don't know the persons and personalities to which those names are attached, but Winston Kennedy and Hugh Murdoch contributed significantly to the New Yarmouth experience. And so when they developed the ISTO system there, they dedicated marks to them.
Right. And it's interesting because you have sort of come full circle now, because Winston Kennedy, before he was in New Yarmouth, Winston Kennedy was the distillery manager at Hampden for many years, and now you are the head distiller at Hampden.
Right. So yes, in those early days, I could not have seen all of this coming, but it was good that I managed to pick up the learnings and the experiences from them. And so yes, I end up here, not by a direct what do you call route, but indirectly. But yes, but I welcome the challenge here. When I was invited, it was from two former co-workers, Alti Mackenzie, who was a distillery manager at Appleton before my time, and one of our finance guy, Aranichi. So they actually called me up, and because I was retired for about 9 months, not doing any work, just trying to relax and have a little television, little outdoors. And they called me up. It took me about 4 tries before I decided that okay. And when I got here, it was what you would consider a culture shock coming from Appleton Estate. But I took it as a challenge and also as an opportunity to change another environment and to improve the knowledge of the youngsters I found when I came. And even my engineers now can tell you about fermentation, and he goes into the distillation plant and he would talk to the pot still guys about what they're not doing right because of all the trainings and the morning meetings that we have explaining the problems and looking at solutions and so on. So um, it was a challenge, but I think I'm meeting the challenge that come my way with the experience that I carry.
Sure. I think Jamaica's initial geographical indication was approved while you were at your nephew. Um, can you speak to us about your role in that? Are you part of that GI team? Or?
Okay, so when I was at Grenada and that started in before Campari, I was a pioneer with the JIPO team, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office team, that started that. Joyce Spence then was leading the Ray and Nephew groupings, and we have all the other distillery senior personnel involved then. So yes, I was part of the team that helped to develop the code of conduct to review all the varying requirements for that. Looking at rums from different plants, we did some training how to identify rums from different plants and so on. And yeah, I was involved with it right up to the end. Yes.
And what would you say? What advantages does having a GI do for Jamaican rum now? As you would say.
Well, it's kind of early days yet, but it allows us to sort of what you call manage rums around the world that are called Jamaican rums, and that is one of the areas that we are focusing on now. I know the spirits body is very vigilant with that. Prior to now, there was a Lloyd Forbes, which you know. And he was one of those persons who looked out for breaches and tried to get them corrected. So I think it will help all the industries and the distillers in the long run to protect the name of Jamaican rum and to ensure that our quality is the same throughout the world.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you spoke to us a bit about your journey from Ray Nephew after you retired and to Hampden Estate. I mean, you mentioned a bit about it earlier, but can you elaborate on that? What actually incites you to come from retirement and go to Hampden Estate now? And
All right. So initially, Mr. Mackenzie actually was here for a while, and he needed to go. He was a much older person, so he wanted his full retirement. He was instrumental in pulling me back out of retirement, and I came. It reminded me of when I just went to Appleton Estate. It wasn't a very clean plant. It wasn't exciting either. And then you see a lot of the things that you could do to improve the system and the look of the place and so on. So that is what I am doing here. I set about looking at the process first, along with the team, to see where we could improve alcohol yield, where we could improve the ester ranges, because as you know, we do ester up to 1600. And the important thing is that we found that the market shifted to more high ester rum demand. It is esters 1,000 and above. So I looked at ways in which we could improve the ester ranges, and also to ensure that we improve the initial alcohol in the dead wash, and then through the post-aging process, develop the ester ranges. You know that is not a straight process to take it from low to 1600. We have side processes that we actually use to do that. And I know one of the passion you have is about the mucking. So
We'll talk about that in a moment.
right. So yes, those are some of the improvements. I look at improvements for the employees as well, in terms of focus on safety and the gears that are needed, and social amenities as well. We have some projects that we are doing here, which is exciting. We did some minor checks and research to ensure that when we go commercial, it would work. So we developed one of those. We had problems with the wooden vats. So most of the vats here were wooden. And then we started building some stainless steel ones. But as you know, aging in a stainless steel vat to get to the ester range you want is very long. So the engineer and myself, it's called Lloyd Brown, we looked at, I came up with an idea just to install the same cedar wood and in the internals of the fermenter, and we did. We engineered a way to get it done, and we set about looking at the first set of wash that it delivered, the second phase of wash it delivered, and we found that taking it to the same aging time, we were able to move the ester range by about 400 points. So that worked. So we continue that in smaller phases for the converters, for that era that we do the conversion. We also built them of stainless steel, and then we set the wood on the inside. And we have no loss of liquid because previously the wood would leak. And we are getting very good results. So right now we are building another, and we expect to have 3 of those systems ready to assist and to improve the high ester that we we have to be marketing.
So is this something essentially like you've placed a wooden vat inside of the steel container, or is there more to it than that?
No, it is just placing a wooden system inside. Because what you found is that the board vats and the concrete vats would leak from time to time. So you tend to lose a lot of material along the way. So one of the first tasks I took on was to try and save the dead wash, because that is where your alcohol and your est are. So that was one of the ways to sort of curtail that. And we are continuing that program to ensure that and we are seeing good results from it, very good results.
So what influenced the choice of wood? You said cedar wood. Any particular reason why it
Well,
is cedar wood?
traditionally, that was the wood that's used there from way back in time. It was custom and practice here to use cedar to build the wooden vats, and to build the converters as well. Right. Also, similarly, the muck pits and so on that are actually below ground.
There's a lot of project upgrade and so that you do, and a lot of new innovations, I would say. Um, so what a normal day? Just summarize a normal day that Rollston have at Hampden
Okay,
Estate.
so when I get in as a seasoned manager, I take a walk. So I take my morning walk through the plant, to see what's happening at the various stations. Speak to the workers, because I believe in the personal touch. So I do that. Then I have a production review meeting at 7:30, quarter to 8 each morning, with the shift supervisors and the engineering team, looking at the 24-hour and what we have achieved, where the defects are, how we should sort those throughout the day, in terms of priority. After that, I'd come back to my office, which is a little way from the plant, so it gives me good exercise. And I would, sign documents, do stuff that are required at the desk, and I would take another walk midday again. Go back into the plant after lunch to walk around, check to see what changes were made since we discussed them in the morning. Pass by the cane mill that we have that also prepares cane juice for us, to look at the operation there, interface with the harvesting team to ensure that canes are available and coming in. And then I go across to the bottling plant. We have a small bottling plant, to see how things are going there. And then meet with the production manager in the evening now, 4 o'clock. We sit, we chat about what's needed, process chemicals, order, anything that we need, bottles, caps, stuff like those. So that's kind of how the days go, looking at what happens. So we do the daily meetings, and we do the weekend reports. On a Friday, we develop the work plan in terms of maintenance for the week and so on with the engineering crew and production manager. So basically, that's it. I take calls from my seniors and bring them up to date on what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
So, since you mentioned cane juice, I have to ask: is this for making cane acid or straight fermenters? Or tell us a little bit about this.
Right, right. So, hi, so distillers they use cane juice, and this is stored over time for it to break down, and then it is now used in the preparation of the wash that you're making. So we have our own mill, a small mill house that does that here, and we plant our own cane, and harvest. So we have a TNT shop here as well, that transports and ensure that equipment are working on that side. So that's what we do. We age them. I am actually experimenting with a way to get the acidity um, done faster, which I can't disclose yet. But I certainly will, on a one-on-one, let you know when the experiment comes out, what it looks like and what it will be. But I am confident it will work. I am taking the young, chemist here and a few shift personnel through some of these things so that when my time expires, there are persons to carry on. So those are some of the things I do here on a routine basis.
Since we have the Hampden Estate distillery manager here, we of course have to ask more about the muck pit. It's a fascinating topic for us enthusiasts. I imagine it has to be a challenge to keep this going and keep it functional and working the way you expect. What can you share with us about the muck pit and also sort of the muck graves, because that is sort of a distinction many people don't understand.
So my exposure to muck pit, they are sort of a long time ancient way of ensuring that we improve this kind of rum that we make. It's an environment in which you want to develop the kind of bacteria that will allow give the flavorants to the ester. So it is a combination of material from two sources. Um, for depending on what fruits you use in your system, you would have the fruit side, and then you would have the development of what you call the population of bacteria coming from another source, and those are combined in a muck pit. My experience is that the odors when I when I first got associated with a muck pit, they're not so nice because
I've smelled the one at Hampton and
right.
I agree.
So yeah, because what you're having is a breakdown of a lot of nitrogenous waste and so on. You have different types of fruits and so on. So it tends to give you that giddy feeling. But after a while, it settles down and so on. But maintenance of that is critical. You have to maintain the sources. So you have to ensure that on a daily basis, persons are assigned to actually do the turnover, because in that system, you have to keep turning the material in order to, get a mix, the surface area exposure of all the microorganisms that will, play a role. We focus on bacteria, but you have wild yeast and other organisms that would be in the mix, and that's what we do. So I have a team that's assigned to do that exercise. I am now experimenting with a sort of a mechanized system, which is not yet installed, but is being designed by myself and the engineer here. He also is somebody who has a very inquiring mind like I am, and he's good at designing stuff. So we work together to look at these sort of upgrades, not necessarily buying brand new equipment, but looking at what we have in an old sugar factory that's not in use, and we take those and install to improve what we do.
And can you share a little bit about the muck graves, where I guess when, at least in the past, when the distillery was shut down for the season?
So the muck graves is where you start that process, and those graves are prepared and left for years, and then you would they provide the seed now. So you would move those into your muck pits when you harvest them. It enriches what goes on there. It replenishes, what you have, and it makes re-energize the muck pit for you. And that material, as you know, is used to assist now in the wooden vats in particular, we tend to utilize the product of that to get the kind of flavors that we want.
It's interesting because it's sort of it's a perpetual system in that you're always removing material from the muck pit to add to the wash, and then you have to replenish it, and you have to maintain that balance of your source
So it
ingredients.
is a system that lives on itself. It takes what's at the back end from the wash that you make, and you grave that, and then when you finish, you come back the other way. So yes.
Yeah, it's a multi parts. Yeah, multi parts. Many things coming in, many things going out, and yeah. So fascinating for us rum enthusiasts. So
I can't get more specific than that, but yeah, that's a
okay,
sort of a good.
but we have to try though.
I know, I know, yes. But this as I am seeing it, this here is the most authentic Heister distillery on the island, if not in the Caribbean. This one is the real deal, as they would say.
You mentioned a lot of people that had influence on your careers and may help you make the transition from one distillery to the next. I mean, one area of the distillery to the other. Any other influential people in your career that you want to tell us about?
All right, so I wouldn't have got here without some, early persons. So in the sugar industry would be a Delroy Foster, and he was one of the giants in the sugar industry in Jamaica. Worked for Reneview, but we started out together in St. Thomas at the Duck and Field Sugar. So my early sugar days was with him. In the oil industry, there was a Pete Fenton who was a managing director, but he was a motivator. And there's a technical manager, Christopher Chinford, who passed now. Both are passed. But they had great influence on my, learnings and sort of ambition to go up the chain. Ian Maxwell, I mentioned before, but in Appleton, there was an engineering manager called Mark Elliott. I'm not sure if you know him. But he came to us from the British system, Booker T side, and he was with me all the way, encouraging. And I spoke of Joy Spence in the early days, and now, well, I still interact with David Morrison. And for what I didn't mention earlier for Appleton was my taking them through the motions to the ISO certification. So 2 years after I joined, I was able to get them certified in the ISO 9001 2015 program. And that program is still rolling today and doing well. And for that one, there was a Claudette Bernard. She was sort of the trainer and person who guided and ensured all of that. So there have been some very influential people. Some of them are still around that we meet and talk. I have a daughter that is at Reneview in their quality department, and she's doing very well. I teach her the rum production side, and she knows all the blending and organoleptics and the other things. So she's actually doing very well.
Tell us about the team that you're preparing now. Then I mean, you have a
Okay,
lot of
so
work
I have a team here. So the production manager came here from Appleton where I was. So I actually was involved in his training as a shift manager there. And so he came here to work 3 years before my time. So he's now the production guy. So he makes the daily factory work easy for me. In quality, I have a Kenroy Gordon. You would see Kenroy on some of these meetings and so on.
I believe it had Kenroy on as a previous guest. Yes.
Right. I saw a previous video in which he himself and Pepe, the guy from the rum tour here. And I have a few younger shoe supervisors who I sort of teach in the morning meetings. So whenever we have issues, if it's fermentation, I walk them through the process, what to do next time, because I want to help them to develop their skills and so on. And I'm trying to groom them as best as I can, not knowing how much more time I have, because I do want to take a trip to Grenada to see my friend here, and
So you're welcome anytime.
to other islands to look at distilleries. I think the West Indies distilleries owner, somebody I got to know. So he has also invited me to that distillery. So yes, I'm trying my best to have some energy left, to be able to do some tours and still sample and grade the Caribbean rums as I tend to do when I meet my friends.
One final two-part question for you, Thomas. Number one, or part A, what rum do you think best represents what Hampton Estate is capable of? And B, what rum would you drink? Of any rum, what would you drink? After a long day at the factory, you just want to relax.
Okay. So we starting from marks. We are putting down some new marks for aging. Because generally I don't consume white rum. I consume red rum. All right. So there are some marks that they currently sell. But what is available locally is generally just the white overproof,
The rum fire.
the rum fire, that as a mark. But they have Great House Edition since I've been here. We have bottled some other types of marks. There is a new one they call the New Beginning. I that one is good, but it was a limited edition. So I'm not sure that um, any of that is still available. But I have a copy, which I take a shot from every now and then. Um, Generally, though, because of the years I've spent in the red ecosystem, the Appleton 80-year-old with coconut water is what I tend to consume. I don't consume a lot anymore, but if I'm going to take a few shots, I will have that.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas. You've been very enlightening on many aspects of sort of more recent Jamaican rum history, and we thank you for that. Devon, anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, just thank you to Thomas. I think it was a good session. I learned a lot from Jamaican rum from you. And
Thank you.
continue to encourage you to train the youth. I think Jamaican rum has a bright future with you training those people and the experience they bring across in the industry. And
Yes, man. Well, I get calls from all the distilleries, persons in all the distilleries now, who have issues and want assistance, and I do help. I try to bring the youngsters as best I can because sharing knowledge will only improve what we do over time.
Couldn't agree more. So,
Yes.
again, thank you, Devon and Thomas. And
Well,
stay tuned. We have more coming on our Worst Rum Maker series. But for now, we're going to sign off. So, take care, everybody.
take care, man. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Bye.
Good.